Welcome to Obsession Engineering at Oulton Park for the second time of BSB being here this year. In a bit of a change from the last time we were here, we came here as Superstock Championship leaders with Franco, and this time we haven't actually got a bike here. There is a bit of a reason for that. Tim Neve, who was riding our bike at Thruxton and Cadwell, he had signed up for some World Championship flat track meetings before we started riding for us, and so he's currently in Italy for a World Championship round. So good luck to Tim for the weekend, and Franco is still on the factory Superbike, so we haven't actually got our bike out. But we have got a rider still, because me and Matt have come along to give Franco some help over the weekend, some friendly faces in the garage for him, and in effect he needs organising because he's a teenager and he leaves stuff lying around everywhere. It is currently Friday night, and so they've done FP1 and FP2, and we're doing a track walk so that we can actually work out braking markers and stuff for Franco, or more actually so Franco can work out some braking markers. And we've brought along somebody who actually knows what they're doing on a superbike around here. Josh Owens with us, and we've also brought Harley McCabe with us, and we're all going to talk through different markers and different lines and different stuff like that, and hopefully tomorrow everybody will go faster, apart from Josh because his arm's still a bit wonky.
That's it. I got my cast off literally yesterday, so just here abusing the physio, to be honest. It's free physio, I don't have to pay for it.
Go on then, show us how much movement you've got in your wrist at the moment.
About that. But going this way is not too bad, but the actual, as if I wanted to open my throttle, not enough. I'd have to chicken wing it. Yeah,
and that's probably not ideal with 240 horsepower superbike.
No, definitely not. I've already done that before and I ended up going home Friday afternoon, so it's just not worth it. So I'm getting a little bit older than wise, some would say. So I've took a bit more time, left my cast on a little bit longer, and just tried to let it heal a bit better. And now the real work starts with the physio and stuff like that, getting a bit of strength back.
Do you put yourself through the pain, making everything as strong as fast as possible?
Yeah, you've got to be done on it. Today I've been in there just wincing all day, basically, feeling a bit sick and groggy, but it's got to be done on it. You got to do it straight away. I got my cast off yesterday, and I was like straight at home, got my bands out, and was stretching my shoulder out, doing everything I can really. So yeah, straight away you just got to be on it.
You've got to use loads, haven't you, to get where you roll it and it's straight down.
Yeah, exactly. But it's managing the roll in the right place, that when you come back on, it doesn't just go straight up again. But I don't know, it depends on what you're in, like your throttle strategies are like that.
Quite an aggressive one now.
Right, so I'd probably start rolling then, if it was me.
The boys up front are talking about riding the superbikes around here, little bit less power on your Moto 3. But the lines obviously vary a little bit, and so does the throttle control. And you were saying where you pick the throttle up round Cascades.
Yeah, so lines, they were saying you can rather go tight here or like wide, depends like on rider. But we go like halfway really, and then sort of keep it until the last part just down there, and then it's flat out from like near enough halfway around corner. So it just depends on rider really.
Is this fourth gearish on yours? Third or fourth?
Third gear, yeah. But you get fourth just as you just out other side.
Literally as you're getting the bike stood up.
Yeah, but yeah.
Decent day today?
It was alright, second overall I think. So yeah, 48.8, it's not bad.
And it's just you and your dad running something out of an awning, there's no big teams, there's no massive infrastructure?
No, that's it, it's just me and my dad because we didn't even have a ride at the beginning of the year, so literally just bought a bike, we're here, we're riding, so it's the main thing. Doing your best, and it turns out the battle last pretty good. Yeah, it's alright, yeah.
We pretty much always, or somebody out of the team always goes for a track walk, and it's normally Matt and Pete go with Franco. Sometimes I tag along if I'm not looking at fuel maps and stupid things like that. But what we've learned is, if you bring along another rider, and obviously somebody fast, always helps, and then it's really useful because the riders are bouncing actual information off of them from the same day. I mean, I've ridden a big bike round here, but my lap times are so different to what Franco and Josh and people are doing that obviously my markers are not that relevant. The lines might be similar and I've got an idea where I'm looking, but it's way different to what they're doing with the bikes, and so obviously it's a lot more relevant if they can come around. So obviously Franco's talking through some bits with Matt at the moment, And Josh is talking through some bits with Harley, because Josh has raced 125s and GP2s and obviously superbikes around here, and so this is where it's useful because they talk through it and they can all gain little bits of information everywhere, whether it's braking markers or different turn points and what line they're looking for and apex points, and even down to, you know, what throttle map do you think works around here, and are you using back brake over the crest or are you just rolling the throttle, and loads of information you gain. And sat in the garage is never as good as getting out on the track.
You want to be coming to it so that as you're coming up over the top, you've turned for the next bit, you know what I mean? Yeah. And I think in the bikes more, right, places like this, it's a bit more stable, whereas if you do hit it like that, you do get that wobble, I think.
I'm scared to use all the track when I get, because it's quick up here, isn't it?
Yeah, it is scary, like when you come up, but you don't know where you're going, do you?
Because your head's here, you're leaning into the next one. You don't know how close your wheel is to that grass.
When you come over the top.
You don't want to hit the grass up here, do you?
Do a Rogers.
It is now Saturday, and the pit lane's fairly busy, but it is not Saturday morning, it is actually Saturday evening, and the track action, if I can speak properly, has nearly finished, but not quite. The reason I've not really been filming during the day is me and Team Boss Matt have been having a few meetings with people about what's going on for the next couple of meetings and for next year, but stay tuned for all that because I'm not giving away my secrets just yet. The other reason I've not been filming much is they don't particularly like me filming in the Honda garage, if we're honest, and so I've been giving Franco a bit of a hand, and me and Matt give him a little bit of familiarity in the garage, and I like to talk through some of the debrief stuff, sort of more about his riding than the bike, because obviously the Honda boys debrief about the bike. We tend to talk about the riding techniques and whether he can, like, maybe is there somewhere we can try different lines or different braking markers, and then some of the stuff that we did on the track walk yesterday is relevant. And yesterday's track walk must have helped, because today in FP1, FP3 even this morning, he was a second a lap faster than he went in FP3 yesterday afternoon, and then qualifying split into two bits, Q1 and Q2. Q1 he was 6th fastest, and that put him into Q2 for the first time ever, and so he qualied 17th, and he has had a race today and finished 15th, and that was with a bit of an issue with the bike. There was a bit of a map and electronics issue, and so he was 15th and annoyed because he thinks he could have run top 10 pace, and that is a big step forward, that in an absolutely rammed pack full BSB grid, Franco thinks he can run top 10. So that is a massive boost to his confidence, and we know he's good enough. It's really, really great to see him actually being able to do it. There is one more session to run on track tonight, but it's not actually a qualifying or a practice session or even a race. It's a bit of a demo session for some of the bikes for next year. So let's go and have a look at what's going on. Right, the Kramer, and that is the 890 that he's running in GP2. That is getting a demo ride, and basically what they're doing in this session is running some of the bikes in some of the slightly different classes for next year to basically showcase what is going to be out there. And so the GP2 class is still going to be running next year, and so the Kramer will be involved in that. Next bike along is an R7 Yamaha, and this is going to be part of the Sportbike Cup, and these are replacing Junior Superstock for next year. So it's going to be R7s, RS660s, 750 Hornets, Triumph Triple Daytona 660 things that are coming out, possibly, maybe, things. I don't know what they are. Interesting. It's basically going to be like a 95 horsepower sport bike class, hence the term Sportbike Cup. And there is a few other bikes as well kicking about. This thing down here that's got lots and lots of people standing around it, that is a ZX4rr. So that is inline 4-cylinder Kawasaki. Think ZXR 400 but brand new. So 4-cylinder, lots of revs, and this is basically replacing Junior Supersport. So the class that was Ninja 400s and R3s and bits like that, that class is gone, and these things are coming in. So it's going to be one make series with these little ZX4rrs, and I'm looking forward to hearing a field of those revving their little nuts off everywhere. Something that isn't critical to the entire structure of British Championship, but is kind of important to our little team, is the bike that's coming over the line next. And in fact, pulling into pit lane Right, that is Andy Irwin back on his Superbike. And that is kind of important to us because if Andy Irwin's back on a Superbike, that means Franco hasn't got a Superbike to ride, which is going to be very relevant for the next meeting. Right, there goes the crane. And this thing is kind of important. Ridden at this point by Dan Linfoot. That is a pathway bike, as they're being called. Think Evo Superbikes. So that pathway Honda, think Evo Superbike, is a super stock bike but with Motec electronics. So it's got the Superbike spec electronics on it, and you can change basically the wheels and put bigger brakes on it. And that is going to basically try and get some of the super stock teams to get up into Superbike to fill the Superbike grid up and give some riders the chance to get on a Superbike in effect for less money, because you don't have to build an entire Superbike, you can build the super stock bike you've already got into a quasi Superbike. So that is going to be quite an interesting class, because we've learnt this year that quite a few of the meetings, the super stock bikes are going to be well in the mix with the Superbikes. So basically that bike with different electronics, slightly lighter wheels, slightly better brakes and the same tyre allocation as a Superbike, so in effect more grip than a super stock bike, should be quite an interesting thing. Dan, the first man to ride the pathway bike, what's it like compared to your stocker?
It's very similar to the stocker. The only difference that really jumped out at me was obviously the BSB spec electronics, and the throttle connection was nice. It was soft enough where it needed to be. You just have to get used to being more reactive with the throttle over the crests here at Oulton. The rear shock, or the rear of the bike, felt a little bit. I had more feeling in the rear of the bike, so maybe that comes from the higher spec shock. Other than that, it felt like a stock bike. Very, very similar.
So what you're saying is the setup work you've spent a year doing on a stocker should actually work?
Well, it should put you in a good start point straight away. Yeah, definitely. There'd be no reason why not. Yeah, it'd just be electronic, wouldn't it? The main probably bulk of the. If you're on a Honda now and you had a year's worth of sort of base setup, you'd be able to apply that, I would have thought, to every sort of track in terms of the chassis. But your work would probably be more electronic.
Katie, you normally ride an R3 in Junior Supersport, but being as they're killing that class off for next year, you're having a run out on this Kawasaki tonight.
I am.
Are you looking forward to it? Something a bit different?
I am looking forward to it, yeah. It's going to be a lot different. I mean, I've spoke to the girl who's already been out on it, and she said it's good, so I can't wait to actually try it. In one mind, I think it's going to be a lot different, and in another mind, I think it's going to be quite the same, so we'll have to see, won't we?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
Right, Katie's go on the little Kawasaki. Let's see what she thinks of this. Well, full tuck down the straight.
Just a little bit.
Right, have more kick them now.
Oh, that's Katie in after her 3 laps on the little Kawasaki. Be interesting to get her feedback on what that thing's like.
It feels like it's got no engine braking, which is the weirdest thing in the world. Like when you shut the throttle off, it doesn't do anything. It just keeps going like as fast as it normally would, and it's just
a bit two-strokey almost.
Yeah, it is really strange, but it's nice. And I mean, I know it's not geared for like anything like what we're doing right now, but if it was geared properly, it'd have the grunt that I want now. So yeah, no, I really enjoyed that. Could have done with a few more laps, but you always need one more, don't you? So, no, I did enjoy that, yeah.
Brakes and chassis, handle all right?
Yeah, it didn't seem too different from my bike. So, obviously, I've ridden a Kawasaki once before, and it was a 600. So, it's my first time properly. So, yeah, good.
Right, so that is the end of the sort of demo testing session, and there's some interesting things come out of it. What we've learned is the Kawasaki can be quite good fun, and it should be good that there's a whole group of basically the same bike, so it evens everything out and will really make a difference the rider will definitely make the difference in that class. It would be nice if they were a little bit louder, because it wasn't quite the screaming 16,000 RPM I was hoping for. It was a kind of muted some thousand RPM, but still actually quite a cool little thing, if I'm honest. The Sportbike Cup, it's a bit of a shame they only had a Yamaha here, because it would have been really interesting to see what the riders thought of that compared to an RS660, which I'm sure is considerably better because it's actually a sports bike from the start. And it was interesting to see Dan's feedback on the Pathway bike, that basically it's very, very similar to the Superstock bike, which it was going to be, but the interesting thing that the electronics is better in some places. He did comment after we'd finished filming that the engine brake's quite a bit different in character to the HRC kit stuff that we're on. So yeah, some interesting feedback from the day. So, welcome to Sunday at Oulton Park, and much like Saturday, I'm recording this in the evening because it has been a very, very busy day going and talking to people and seeing what's going on, and basically sort of keeping an eye on Franco and giving him some help. Bit more information on the Pathway Superbike. So we've got a few more details on it, and there's a few more bits you're allowed to do to it than I first understood. So you're allowed brakes, and included in that there will be an allowance to have different fork bottoms, so that you can run the proper Superbike brakes with different offsets and bits. So that won't be available for the end of this year, because they have to basically get them spec'd up so they are actually safe and sort of basically homologated. So you'll be allowed different fork bottoms to go on your super stock forks, and then you can run the proper Superbike brakes. You will be allowed Superbike wheels, and the reason for that is they are lighter and they'll be nicer to ride, and especially compared to the BMWs, they'll be probably cheaper than the original wheels. And then you're allowed a different slipper clutch to work with the Motec, because the standard stuff might not work with the engine brake strategy you could have in Motec. And then there is a few other little bits. You might be allowed different bell mouths, and basically there might be a slight variation between different bikes as to what you're actually allowed, because they've got to balance the bikes out. Because, for example, the Honda's a Mega Super stock bike, whereas the Kawasaki has some restrictions in it, so there will be some allowance to basically balance the bikes up. The real idea behind the Pathway bikes, I meant to get that right, the Pathway bikes, is that it will get super stock teams to join the Superbike grid, and basically they're allowed 1 year on their Pathway bike, and then they can go to full Superbikes. So the idea is you can get the bikes on the grid for a reasonable cost, because you've already got the bikes, and then you can get your sponsors down, everybody can see the bikes, everybody can get in pit lane, get into the Superbike thing, they can get extra exposure because more TV and stuff, and then hopefully your sponsors have enjoyed themselves that much, they then spend a load of money and buy you a real Superbike. That is the idea. Obviously it boosts the Superbike grid a bit as well, so the idea is that everybody wins. Because it's the first weekend after the passing of Paul Bird, there was a real nice tribute on the start line yesterday to Birdie, and they've got a load of his bikes and bits down pit lane. So we've got like the old Monster Mod bike that Hizzy rode, some of the bikes that Shaky rode on it, Tom Sykes' bike from when he was riding the Honda here, and number 4 is actually McGuinness's bike that won a British Championship in '99, I think, and then also won a TT as well, was McGuinness's first TT win. So some really special bikes for Birdie, and in fact what we'll do is we'll have a little bit walk down pit lane. So we're really hoping that next year the PBM team will be back, hoping that Birdie's son and daughter actually sort of take the realms of that, take the reins of it even, and hopefully, fingers crossed, that team still will be running next year. OMG are back next year. Kyle is already signed, and I think Vickers is probably staying there. Right, Leon Haslam and his rocket team, as far as I know, that's carrying on. Jack Kennedy is out of Martrain. It's not official who's there yet, but there are a few candidates. Right, there is no McCams next year. Stapleford is only a standing rider for this weekend, but O'Halloran has signed for FS3, which means Lee Jackson isn't on the FS3 bike next year, so he's on hopefully something else, but as far as I'm aware he hasn't actually got a deal sorted out. Josh Brooks and Hickman are signed up for FHO next year. Max Cook is on an FS3 bike with O'Halloran on the other side of the barrage in Lee Jackson's sort of side, as it were. We don't know what's going on with Oxford Ducati yet. I've not heard what's happening, whether they're actually running a superbike or not, or whether they might be running a second super sport bike, because obviously their super sport bike is winning and is considerably cheaper to run. Right, at Hawk, the rumours I'm hearing are Charlie's there. Not sure if they're running a second superbike or quite what's happening yet. I think that will all depend on funding. At Honda, Andy Irwin is on for next year, and they have a second superbike definitely running, and it will probably be a Yorkshireman who's fast around the Isle of Man who used to ride a Kawasaki. Definitely not giving that away. Not quite sure what's happening with Storm. I assume Storm will probably stay where he is. Not sure what's going on with the tactics by Lloyd BMW team either. Right, Dow, this is an interesting one. Next year, Dow Racing are running 2 bikes. Braden Elliott, who's finishing the season on them, he is on one of them, and Danny Buchan is on the other one. Not sure what's happening with the Lee Hardy team yet. Synetic's an interesting one. David Todd is already signed up for TT, but on a Milwaukee branded bike. So that leaves definitely one, arguably maybe even 2 bikes, with so far no names attached to them because Danny Buchan's going next door basically. And then we get to far end of the garage. I don't have a clue what's going on with Tag Racing and the Rapid team at the end. I know they're talking to Jack about what to do for next year, but again, nothing signed or sealed. So basically that's a rundown of most of the BSB pit lane, and then of course there will be 1 or 2, maybe 3 or 4 of the stock boys going up to Pathway Superbike on either Hondas. There is a rumour of a Yamaha coming out of OMG possibly for that as well, so that'll be quite interesting. And of course there will be news on Franco Bourne and what he's doing, but we might save that for Donington Park. I do feel I need to do a bit of a Franco update after main race day. So obviously Franco had a really good qualifying, got through to Q2, did some really competitive lap times, way faster than the Superstock bike, so that's been a bit of a benchmark this year. And he definitely stepped up his own performance this year. Then there was a bit of a technical issue in the first race, and he didn't have the engine brake that he was supposed to have. Basically wore the front tyre out, stopping the bike into the hairpins bits. They got that sorted for today, and unfortunately in morning warm-up, basically he pulled his knee and was wincing a lot when he got off the bike. So he went out for the first race, and actually not to do with the knee, but he was pushing hard and took the front into the last corner, but then retweaked the knee. So went out for the second race and unfortunately had to pull in because his knee hurt too much. So we've had flashes of Franco brilliance, unfortunately didn't quite work out this weekend. So unfortunately that is his weekend done. But there is some stock 600, so I'm going to go and do a bit of spectating. I've taken to hiding in a now empty pit garage because they timed it right, the last race finished and then it rained, and so everybody is packing up and going home. A couple of bits that I didn't mention particularly as I was walking up and down the pit lane talking about who's going where. I kind of forgot to mention Danny Kent. So Danny Kent has basically run out of money for this year, but the rumour I've heard is him going to Martrain, which will be why Jack Kennedy isn't at Martrain anymore. So Jack Kennedy's on the rider market, Lee Jackson's on the rider market, Synetic still have to find 1 rider, potentially 2. These things could all fit together quite nicely. So that is the end of my rider rumour mill for now. I'm sure most of it will actually prove to be utter nonsense and people will end up in places I haven't even considered. So this hasn't been the normal Obsession Engineering race weekend review, but we have found out a lot of information this weekend. I've also talked to the organisers about the Sportbike Cup spec, and so if you want an RS660 building, drop me a message, because now I basically know what I'm actually building the bikes to, which is considerably more useful. So that is finally it from Oulton Park. I hope some of my weekend ramblings have been of some interest to you. If not, I hope I've cured your insomnia. So thank you for watching, and join me again next time for some more motorbike fun.